here's like a little thing about me is that I used to read a lot of fan fiction. I shipped Eduardo Saverin and Mark Zuckerberg so hard. Like after watching that
What?
movie.
What?
Wow.
Okay.
So
And-
Slash, you read Tech Slash.
Yeah, no, literally, it is maybe the most cringe tech bro thing about me is that even before I was a man, I was into gay tech bro slash.
Wait, what is that?
Slash. It's yeah. That's from the 90s. It's written fiction, but queer, like lots of sex or the hint of it, depending on what you're into.
Oh, and then tech slash means
Like, I mean, I just made that up now because I've never thought anybody would
big tech
would-
slash.
would
Fang
ship,
slash.
like Faceberg.
No, it's like the stuff of Mid-Journey generated like Elon Musk and Kim Jong-un making out. Like that's the 2024 equivalent of that. But
Oh my
back
gosh.
in our day, it was purely text. It was purely the written form.
Literally Gasian. Literally Gasian.
Yeah, one of those like camera like film things where it's like and action.
Oh, that would be fun.
Well, not in that case, action.
Action. Oh my God. I forgot to read the intro. But here we go. You're listening to Literally Gasians, the podcast where two Gasian guys get real about their feelings and really Gasian shit.
It's Gasian bleep.
Oh, bleep. Oh, are we going to get censored on YouTube?
Yes, so on YouTube, if you cuss within the first 5 minutes, you'll be demonetized. I mean,
Okay,
we don't
we'll
make
bleep
any
it.
money anyway, but like, for the future.
But after the first 5 minutes, you can curse like a sailor.
Apparently, yeah. I think it's
Okay.
a rumor. I like try to look it up, but like when I watch these drag race podcasts, they say, "Oh, we can't cuss we have to bleep it out, and you can't cuss in the first 5 minutes, or else they start like demonetizing you."
Next time I'm going to set a timer. 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And ready, set, curse.
Well, getting back to it, this is Bao and Chris. I'm the Chris.
And I'm the Bell, and we have officially our youngest guest ever
Oh my god.
on our podcast today. Wait, how old are you, Emmett?
I'm 26.
Emmett is 26.
Oh, okay, 26. All right. And you are a tech startup founder. Let's see. Or are we going to do that?
Please go ahead.
Sure.
You're my guest.
You're a tech startup founder, and you can follow him on TikTok and Reels to get influenced by him when he talks about being hot, young, and a trans startup founder. So you are living the golden days that me and Bao missed. Like we were once young, hot, gay tech babies, but look at us now. We just have a podcast.
More than I
Anyway, here's Emmett. Hi, Emmett.
Hi, Bao and Chris.
All right, so honest answer only. Have you ever listened to this podcast?
I've listened to snippets. I've listened to
The TikToks.
clips here and there that get surfaced to me by the algorithm. But I actually don't know how to find the full podcast episodes. So
You can follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, at
Anywhere you
Literally
get your
Gasians.
podcasts. Yeah.
Yes, at Literally Gasians.
that's maybe the problem. I don't listen to podcasts. So
Let's do that something else. Yeah. And I was just going to chalk it up to that, you're not our age demographic.
Spotify actually sends us the age demographic of our listeners, and it's like, oh, old. So it's like elder millennial and a sprinkling of Gen Z, I guess. I don't know. Do you consider yourself Gen Z?
I'm technically a zillennial because I was born in
Got it.
'98. But I kind of feel more spiritually like millennial. Like
You
I'm
give
like-
that.
I kind of I love consumer packaged goods. I love the millennial like
You love the
like,
pale pink
art.
branding.
Yeah,
Sad beige.
yeah, it speaks to me.
I think also given like you're in that tech world, I think that's also a very millennial thing too.
Yeah, because Gen Zs don't have jobs, as we know.
They're all quite quitting jobs that they don't have.
If they have a job in the first place.
So, for our listeners, maybe, how about you introduce yourself in like a nutshell?
My name is Emmett. All the things that you guys said are true. I I think I've what should I even say about myself? I have lived like a number of lifetimes a little bit. I feel like where I thought I was going to be an academic when I was in school, and then I graduated into big tech and was doing like the big tech 9 to 5 life for a while. And then last year I quit that to kind of find my destiny and to do content and be in the trenches and do a startup. And I've been doing that for about a year now. I was like reflecting with my current co-founders the other day, being like, basically my scooter broke down on the way to this thing that I was going to. I was looking at the Uber, it was $30, and I was like telling my co-founder at that point, I was like, I need to get on the bus. And he was like, that's the difference between you and me. I would have paid the $30 for the Uber. And I'm like, bitch, when you're a year into it, you will not.
Girl, that whole last sentence just was like the most SF tech. All those keywords, the scooter, the startup, the Uber. Oh, I was like, dang, you really are a millennial of SF.
I know, I'm one of you guys. Don't ostracize me.
Well, I'm in LA. We just drive everywhere now. I used to take Ubers because I live in K-Town, and it took Ubers to go to WeHo. I'm like, this adds up. And we all just drive and kill the planet.
This makes sense for me.
Exactly. And wait, so Doncha and Emmett, you guys know each other, so how did you guys meet?
Yeah,
do you remember how we met, Emmett?
We met through Gappa Runway, which is a queer and trans pageant. A queer and trans Asian Pacific Islander pageant that has been running since 1988. It started as an underground dance party for queer Asian people to gather during a time.
Was it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my god,
I didn't even know that.
I'm a second prince, and you've won, Doncha. So,
And I was on the board of Gappa when I was 17 in 1997, and I still didn't know this.
wait, it was an underground dance party in 1988.
Yes, because the Castro and other like gay institutions at the time wouldn't let Asian people into those spaces. It was very white.
Yeah.
What?
Midnight Sun was like, they proudly rejected Asian folks back then.
What do you mean proudly?
They rejected any people of color out of that place.
Wow.
They've turned whatever that idiom is.
new leaf.
A new leaf. Yeah. Yeah, I remember meeting you. It was like coming out of lockdown. There's Gappa Runway, Asian Pacific Alliance, and I just remember being so excited to see this like young, fresh meat run around running this like really big, one of the longest running, Asian pageants, like possibly in the world, I think. And
really?
Yeah, and so just like a couple weeks ago was the 35th anniversary.
Wow.
It was last year was the 35th anniversary. This year's
Oh.
the 36th, actually.
Oh, I can't even count no more.
Dude.
Yeah, and
I'm just remembering now, Doncha, when you and I competed for Mr. Gappa, that was 2013.
damn, 11 years ago now.
Almost, yeah. Wow. Wait, so Emma, did you compete or were you on the board?
No, I never competed. I did a lot of theater production in college, and then when I moved to SF in the middle of the pandemic, joined the Gappa board, produced Runway virtually, because I was an anxious overachiever and was trying to get in with the local Gaysians. And I was like, let me harness my theater production powers for some good, and just started producing it. I think now, though, that I've kind of retired from producing it a little bit, maybe I will compete one day.
Yeah.
You should totally compete.
It's so fun.
It really is.
It's so exciting, and you get so drunk.
Oh, is that
I don't know
why
if you drink. But you get drunk, but you're in San Francisco. Okay, I saw this one video you did that the best way to be connected in the San Francisco big tech scene is to be a Gaysian. And there were a lot of Gaysians in the audience.
Like, what did you mean by that?
To be gay, and I will spill a little bit of tea that this year there was like a little bit of a mishap during Gappa Runway, the show, where one of the previous Immortals, your ilk, Chris, was on stage
I heard
being a
about this.
little too tipsy during the award ceremony.
Yeah, my drag mother had to pull him off stage.
Wow. Name him. I'm just kidding. Do not name him.
I mean, that's why I said it's a good time. Even if you don't win, which both Bao and I, as running for Mr. Gappa, did not win, it was still a good time. That's how I got to know Bao a lot.
But don't you won Miss Gappa when it was called Miss Gappa?
Yeah, so
Oh my god, I love how
it
you're
took 5 times.
I love how disappointed you are that you didn't win twice. Like
She's like, it's all or nothing.
It's the process, not the goal.
so I guess we're all anxious overachievers.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, so Doncha and I used to be the new blood in the SF tech scene, the young Asians in the SF tech scene, probably a decade ago, and now we're seeing this whole new generation join. And so maybe why don't we talk about what inspired you to become like a tech entrepreneur and finding this startup?
Ooh, I mean, I think it honestly started in middle school when I watched The Social Network. Have either of you guys?
Oh my god. Yes.
It was a real like coming to Jesus moment. I think I was like, here's like a little thing about me is that I used to read a lot of fan fiction. I shipped Eduardo Saverin and Mark Zuckerberg so hard. Like after watching that movie.
What?
Wow.
Okay.
So Slash, you read Tech Slash.
Yeah, no, literally, it is maybe the most cringe tech bro thing about me is that even before I was a man, I was into gay tech bro Slash.
Wait, what is that?
Slash. It's yeah, that's from the 90s. It's written fiction but queer, like lots of sex or the hint of it depending on what you're into.
Oh, and then tech slash means
Like, I mean, I just made that up now because I've never thought anybody would
big tech slash,
would
fang
ship,
slash.
like Faceberg.
No, it's like the stuff of Mid-Journey generated like Elon Musk and Kim Jong-un making out. Like that's the 2024 equivalent of that. But
Oh my
back
gosh.
in our day, it was purely text. It was purely the written form.
Wait, so it was someone who sat down and wrote fan fiction about Mark Zuckerberg and
Eduardo Saverin.
okay, and that was a whole genre.
Yes,
fan fiction.
yes, it was.
Whoa.
It was popping. There were new chapters dropping every day.
Well, what's one
Story
What's-
point.
what's the most ridiculous story points that were ever written on one of those tech slash fan fiction Eduardo Mark Zuckerberg things that you can remember?
I mean, there's always the classic like we both leave our high-powered 9-to-5 corporate jobs to start a coffee shop together. Like,
Oh, this is kind of romantic.
That's kind of sweet.
yeah, no. It
If
was
only
def-
that did happen.
I mean, Eduardo Saverin still could. I don't know what he's doing nowadays, but he was played by Andrew Garfield in the movie, and
Who's so hot.
that was the basis of the fascination, I think.
I know, and then Andrew Garfield went and put on a Spider-Man costume. Dude. And then he went to sing on Tick Tick Boom. So I'm a huge Andrew Garfield fan.
Tick Tick Boom
me
was
too.
one of the
I
best.
cried during Tick Tick Boom.
I cried so hard.
I've that's probably one of the musicals I've rewatched the most, but I've seen and it's been a while since I've watched a musical that much, but it's all about Andrew Garfield for me in that one.
He did so well.
Absolutely. And I went to because of that movie, which is named after the eponymous musical that he wrote, also called Tick Tick Boom. I went to go see the musical Tick Tick Boom afterwards, and he was not in that, obviously, because it was like a local community production. But
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I just feel so close to him in this show, in the audience, crying over this.
It was so good. Okay, I'm in it for Andrew Garfield and the one song, the one ballad, "Come to Your Senses." Oh, so it's the one where he writes the song and then like the performer who's like Vanessa Hudgens sings it.
Oh, and they're like puppeteering.
Yeah,
That was really good.
yeah.
Yeah, there's three faggots on screen right now talking about musical theater.
I still feel like it
I love musical theater.
also, that movie felt like it got snubbed during this award season. I feel like Andrew Garfield should have been nominated for Best Actor in that one. Lin-Manuel Miranda did an amazing job, his first directorial debut. Sorry, I just think it's underappreciated. That's like the type of shit I'm into. So,
And you know, as a
more.
elder millennial like who grew up around Rent, I thought it was a big deal. But I had to admit that it wasn't until Tick Tick Boom that I learned that the writer didn't die of AIDS. He had a heart attack. Which I just assumed as a child that he died of AIDS.
Or an aneurysm.
I didn't even know he was straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how not up on history I am.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing in the actual musical Tick Tick Boom as well, where Jonathan Larson and his best friend are singing about, like, basically his best friend drops out of showbiz to be like a corporate marketing person or something. And there's this number where they're in his best friend's new swanky apartment that has like an in-unit washer dryer and like a dishwasher and all these things. And I was thinking in the audience, like, it's really interesting that nowadays, like, people in tech at least never even experience that like moment of being like, oh, this is my first adult apartment, because new grads coming out of UC Berkeley, whatever, can make like 150K out of the gate.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it took me a while to get into big tech, so I did have to wash my own dishes and go downstairs for laundry for a long time. I think in LA it's a little bit more affordable, but yeah, being in SF, you can be caught in that little bubble of just like, yeah, this is the salary I'm going into. I don't know. Remember, don't you? I sent you that TikTok of this one guy, this Gaysian, who like went through his different salaries, and he's like barely 26, and I was like, wow, I did not make that much at 26.
Just a little fun fact, that's the Gaysian who somebody used his photos to catfish me.
Oh.
Wait, say more.
It goes deep. It goes deep. Yeah. If only that hot, rich, young 26-year-old was actually hitting on me.
Wait. We took a little detour. Back to the entrepreneur question.
Yeah. You're shipping like Facebook and Andrew Garfield. What about that led you to want to be in tech?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a detour. I think, honestly, so one of my co-founders and I recently rewatched it, and I think it was just like one of the first big like glamorizations of tech and like tech founder life that we had seen at the time. And obviously there was the whole .com boom before us, but there weren't like whole Hollywood studio productions like detailing their whole like ascent to infamy. And I think Social Network, because David Fincher directed it too, who's a fantastic director, and there was just such a beautiful blend of like naivete and like arrogance and like triumphing despite it all, and it was a very intoxicating blend of like a vision board, kind of. And I think I didn't like pick up on many of the nuances in the movie at the time when I first watched it, but it definitely did like stoke a certain flame in me from an early age. And actually, like, Sam Altman kind of commented on this too after he saw Oppenheimer. He tweeted that like, in the same way that like the Social Network inspired a whole generation of founders, I was hoping that Oppenheimer would do a similar thing for like maybe the next generation of physicists, but didn't have that same like inspirational flame, I guess.
Pizzazz.
Yeah.
I would say Oppenheimer. We will wait and see with Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer came out like last year, so maybe in 10 years
time.
we'll see the inspiration or the impact of that. And I think one thing I find very interesting about big tech is I think there are modern day kings and empires, and that kind of kings and empires have been in storytelling ever since actual kings and empires. And the beauty of Social Network, it was like look into the building of an empire and the building of a king. And it's funny it came out like that long ago, but he's even more powerful now. Which is why we love to see what happens to Elon Musk. Well, we love to see what happens to Jeff Bezos. We view them as the billionaires are the new kings, you know, and you love to see a king falter, fall, empires fall. And there's an allegory that we've seen throughout humanity, like in different generations. Why did I get here so
I don't know.
quickly? Anyway?
I'd rather call them oligarchs, but
it.
I get what you mean.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, and all the people and the backstabbing and they're great stories, honestly.
It's so true. Like I'm also like very personally fascinated by early internet history, and like so I have a tattoo. This is on my left arm, and this is like the first tattoo that I ever got. And people ask me about
Okay,
it all
guns, but all right.
She's been hitting the gym, but
Okay. Okay,
I know, I've been watching.
no one's been able to avoid it. It's basically a Latin phrase from an article by an internet society scholar that I really like named Lawrence Lessig. I think he's a professor at Harvard now, but he wrote this article and he has a phrase in it that says lex informatica, which is Latin for code is law. And it's about how, like, in the early days of the internet, there wasn't really like a company or government that presided over the internet or like put it in a sandbox the way there kind of is now. It was just like the raw code that the people wrote that was the law of the land. And it was a very like Wild West, like people's platform kind of thing. So I really admired the like kind of building ethos and the like things woven into the fabric of early tech.
But now that that's not necessarily it, is it, and you're deep in it, are you less fascinated by it, or are you liking the direction that it's going?
I think it's making a comeback.
Okay.
Me and my co-founders are pretty enmeshed in like the startup scene, and there's a lot of sort of hearkenings back to the early days of the internet, or even like early Macs and like early hardware. So there's some startups nowadays that are very like tongue-in-cheek with their names. Like there's a company called SF Compute Company, because they sell like computing power basically, and we're always like, it's giving very like US Steel, like it's very like San Francisco Chronicle, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's also visually a lot of like visual references back to kind of like early Apple serif. Like a lot of people are using that kind of font. People are kind of using visual references that evoke like early hardware products or like early user interfaces. There's this company called Software Applications, where if you go to their website, it's basically like a 90s desktop computer. So I think it's retro and it's making a comeback.
It's like fashion. Like the same with the fashion, the same time period, all back to like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah, and the ideology is also interesting. The principles of those ideology, I think people have been debating hotly for the rise of big tech and now like the rise of AI. Of just like, how much should the government touch tech or stifle innovation or control like how crazy tech can get? And I think those are big questions that are happening right now around AI. That I am not prepared to discuss, because I think when Chris and I
say that this is not about tech, this is about being Gaysian.
Yes,
but being Asian in tech.
Being Gaysian in tech is also a big thing. And then all I wanted to say is when Doja and I were coming up in San Francisco in our mid to early 20s, we were just like, I just want that big tech money.
I want the paycheck. I want the big parties that fed us. I had
the free
fun.
Lunch.
Yeah, it was so fun those days. And
Yeah,
I felt like I ruled the world then.
I feel like I kind of experienced some of that in my college years when I was like, the first time that I got flown out to SF for like an on-site interview, I was like, oh my God, this is the life. Like, I'm like a businesswoman getting flown out to the West Coast for like a business meeting. And
Wait, where'd you grow up?
I'm from New York. I went to school in Connecticut at Yale.
Oh, nice.
Oh, fancy.
Definitely feeder school into big tech.
Yeah. Very theater. I was originally deciding between like MIT and Yale for computer science, and everyone I knew was like, you're dumb for not choosing MIT. And I was like, that is true. And I think I would have like turned out fine either way. Like I don't regret doing Yale, and I don't think I would regret going to MIT, but I just would have been a very different person. I definitely would not have produced Gappa Runway if I'd gone to MIT.
So Yale gave you appreciation of the arts because you said you're really into musical theater and theater. Did that begin in Yale or before that?
I think because I grew up in New York, in like Queens, I always was like going to Broadway week, which is when in New York they do like a 2-for-1 on Broadway, and me and my high school bestie would always just like play hooky from our homework and go into the city and watch a show or two. So I was definitely like drawn to the production value of it from an early age, but then in college kind of got into the behind the scenes and like the nuts and bolts of how you make it all work.
The fact that you went to Yale and not too long ago reminds me that me and Doncha are quite two elder millennial ogres. We're at the exceptionally opposite end of your millennial spectrum, where you are in the place. Because I'm
This podcast.
yeah.
Yes, we're trying to grow a larger audience, bringing in an elder Gen Z.
Yeah. Well, okay,
Yeah.
and then I don't know, because on my notes here it's like talk about age. I have no idea how to approach this. So I didn't realize. So you're how old again? I think I asked you in the beginning, but like
26.
remind me. 26. Okay. As a 26-year-old, and you're seeing, this is where I'm at. When I was 26-year-old, there was maybe one generation above us that seemed very different but very welcoming. But then I just felt like there was the generation above that wasn't as present because of history, right? Like a lot of them were wiped out by the AIDS epidemic. How does it feel to be in the queer community now with elders, and how do you view elders? I can't believe the calling us like us or people or like generations above. Like, how do you view us? How do you view old people like us? Is basically, I guess, my question.
You better say hot, but go on.
Smoking, absolutely. I mean, I know plenty of people my age who are very into daddies. Not that you.
It's fine. We're gonna embrace it. We're embracing it.
Yeah, I got called Poppy at 30, so I'm fine.
I mean, one of my friends who's 26 got called daddy on Grindr the other day, and he was like, "You know what? I'm embracing it. I'm owning it."
I just don't think daddy's an age. It's like a state of mind. It's a vibe.
Yes.
You know.
No, I'm always saying this about twinks. Twinkdom is a state of mind. Like, being a twink transcends age. I would say transcends gender. Like, I know plenty of queer people who are called twinks. Like, I follow
I see that.
I follow this one sex writer who has like a chain necklace, and in the middle of it is like a poppers bottle, and she wears it everywhere. And I'm like, if that's not twink behavior, I don't know what is.
Wait, so twink did originate from the gay community, or did they used to call younger women that? I just remember this one Friends episode where someone was complaining that, I think Monica was complaining that her boyfriend was going to date someone younger and called the younger person a twink, a younger woman a twink.
Oh.
So do we know if like twink actually originated from this? Did the gays make it famous, or I don't know? We got to look that up.
I don't know. I do know there was like some girl in, I want to say the 60s, but I have no idea, called like Twiggy. Do you guys know what I'm talking
Yes.
about?
Yeah, the model.
model.
Supermodel.
And she was giving very like girl twink.
Twink. It's British slang from like the 20s about gay male prostitutes.
Is this your Google gay AI overview? Search Labs AI overview?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, me too. Yes. Okay. Twank. I'm gonna call myself a twank.
Twink.
It's probably like a twank.
So that's what that's the original origination of the word twink. Twank, 1920s British slang for a client of gay male prostitutes.
I don't
the
know.
client?
Works.
I don't know if that's more or less offensive than twas. A twink.
A twas. or the twunks. I felt like I identified as a twunk for a long time. I think I was a twink up until about 35, which I think is usually gay death for most people. But I like you said, it was a state of mind. My Arrested Development kept me a twink well into my 30s.
I think being a twink is all about like it's kind of about like agency and like wanting to feel taken care of and to feel like you are the object rather than the actor and that like life happens to you. Um, it's kind of like
Oh,
it's kind of like a helpless state a little bit.
Interesting.
So
I
by
don't think of that.
helpless.
I don't.
Oh. Not unless you're the demon twink.
yeah,
Demon
the
twinks
have a lot of
exist.
agency.
I can see that. I can see that. Maybe I will adopt that. But here, this is the question maybe around age that I want to get to. How do you in your state view elder millennials? What do you view as the difference between maybe the vibe around people your age in the queer community versus the vibe somewhere of people like in our age in the gay community or the queer community?
Yeah, I'll speak to kind of from what I've seen from the queer Asian community in SF. It does feel like older millennial Gaysians are much more like tightly knit a little bit.
Yes.
Sort of
Oh.
almost out of necessity, but like maybe also by choice. I mean, there definitely are plenty of what people call like sticky Gaysians that are like Gen Z or like young millennial. But I think about this a lot with GAPA, the organization that produces Runway, is that like it's very hallowed and very like revered as this like gathering place and this safe space for people to like build community, to do political advocacy, to really like be transgressive in community building. And I think nowadays it's kind of like if you throw a rock on the street, you'll hit three Gaysians, and it's not so hard to like find that community anymore. And so perhaps because of that, people don't intentionally seek it out as much. Maybe they take it as a given a little more, and so people don't intentionally form like homogenous Gaysian friend groups as much. I think.
No, I feel like you've kind of definitely described how I've seen the progression. Like maybe that's what GAPA was for, and to not have to have that need eventually, and like we needed that community then. Not necessarily that we need it less so now, but we, I don't know, paved the road for all these young little queers
absolutely.
to just be friends with everyone. And there's enough
Yeah,
of us. There's plenty of us now.
it's kind of like the organization and the community did its job so well that there is no need for the organization anymore. Or like there's less need now.
Yeah.
Yeah, or the organization was progressive and necessary, and now it's establishment.
Yeah, I think I mean, there's lots of things happening with queer Asian people now that are still pertinent issues, right? Like, I think in entertainment, that's like an evergreen issue that Asian people love to discuss. Bowen Yang, Joel Kim Booster are very prominent queer Asian people who are like definitely making waves in the comedy scene. There's ever more kind of like Asian American diaspora writers like Minor Feelings, Kathy Park Hong, Crying in H Mart.
One of my favorite books ever.
Like there is definitely a whole new wave of Asian and Asian American art that is making Asian people feel more seen than ever before. And obviously there's always more to do as well. So I think like maybe to reference tech a little bit, like at least in the upper echelons, quote unquote, of like tech people, maybe like especially gay tech people in SF, there still aren't that many Asian people. So that's an interesting frontier to possibly see more progress happening in the next few years.
Yeah, or Asian people in leadership roles. And sometimes when we talk about diversity and inclusion, I think like from a corporate standpoint, it depends on where you're at. And sometimes I view like in the SF Bay Area big tech scene, is Asian representation, is Asian really like underrepresented? I think so, but also like as much as Black and Latinx, right? Or Indigenous. And so it's like when yeah, that's a larger conversation. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like I had never experienced or like been or had been able to see so many different types of Asian people and like queer Asian people before moving to the Bay. where like before I moved to SF, I had never seen an ABG or like known what an ABG was even.
Wow.
And
That's my whole life, but yeah.
Well, I guess it's a kind of more West Coast thing.
I'm an ABG.
yeah, like did you grow up in SoCal?
Grew up in San Gabriel Valley, like the birthplace of ABG.
Right, like it's in your blood. Like you probably know how to put on a lash extension with the best of them.
Exactly. And I like the look no matter how anyone like shades it. Yeah.
Wait, so New York didn't have ABGs?
I'm sure there's some now, but like I distinctly remember my senior year in college, which was like 2019, 2020. There was a girl in my dorm who is like a template ABG, and I was like, I remember feeling like, oh, I've never really seen anyone like her before on campus.
She was probably from here.
I know.
Yeah.
The ABG in Yale, that's amazing. And then look at ABG cultures all over mainstream culture now. In the summer, Coffee Bean and Starbucks have pearl drinks.
Wow.
I'm like, that's boba, bitch.
We won
Anyway.
the culture war.
We've made
made
it. We've made it, everyone. So speaking of like growing up with ABGs, I want to learn about your upbringing. So before you were a young, hot startup founder in SF, where were you? What happened in life to bring you to San Francisco to be this version of yourself?
Wait, like when you said that they flew you out for that interview, was that like what brought you out?
That
San
was,
Francisco?
I think that was like the first time I'd been to SF as an adult. Was for this like on-site interview, and before then, so I was born in Beijing, and my parents and I all immigrated over together when I was about 5, and most of my childhood I think was spent being kind of just like angsty and like troubled because I was like figuring out my gender. I was also like the oldest daughter in like an immigrant household with like 2 younger brothers. So a lot of like
the eldest. A lot of expectations on the
well,
eldest.
you know, like it's a lot of
I'm the
like
baby, so
okay, you can't speak. Yeah, it's a lot of like navigating identity as well as trying to shield. I think like Kathy Park Hong actually describes this so well in Minor Feelings. But like the Asian emasculation of like Asian masculinity as immigrants, especially like watching one's father be emasculated in certain contexts, you keep that thing on you.
No, I've read it twice. I read it during the pandemic. It never articulated how I really felt until like I read this book. The minor feeling of it all, like minor rage that you keep locked in. Anyway, I just had to share that
So
with you.
like, I'm sure like you guys probably know about this concept, but like in Chinese, which I think Kathy Park Hong talks about, there's like this concept of like the bitter pill, and like it's about like swallowing your pain and like keeping it all like festering inside and like bottled up because it's like honorable and like you're saving face by doing that. And I think a lot of what like the transgressive, like disruptive Asian American artists and like writers and cultural commentators of today are doing are kind of about like unstopping the bottle and like letting all the Asian rage out and being like unapologetically loud and taking up space and laughing loudly and talking loudly. And it like it feels very perhaps not natural to like the way that we were raised in some ways, but it also is incredibly empowering.
and very freeing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very freeing. I know it's weird to say this from someone who has a podcast.
But we weren't always like this.
No, but I still feel that. I still feel that at work. I still feel that when I'm trying to be accommodating to my boyfriend, but I'm trying to swallow the bitter pill of like saying how I really feel. And it might be very surprising to people who know me very well that I do swallow the bitter pill a lot. But yeah, it's something that I resonate with for sure. No, my boyfriend is okay. My boyfriend's Asian, but we just had a big fight. But the thing is, like, we had a big fight because I distinguished that I'm second generation. He's a 4th generation Japanese American from Hawaii, and that like there are just some things that I see the world differently, and he took that to mean. I'm not sorry to get into this, but he took that to mean that I didn't think he was Asian enough.
Ooh.
which I can see why. Or that like he didn't have Asian cultural values, or like that I thought my Asian cultural values are more Asian than his, which I would like look back like I can see how that happened. That's why I reacted to that question that way. And like even then, now like that you brought up Minor Feelings and we just had that fight where we're good now, I was like, he should read this book, because I think we would connect on that, because I think he comes from the same experience of being in Hawaii and feeling like I'm just American and everyone's just themselves and not anything about race. And he came to the U.S. and felt like, that's not the U.S., he's from Hawaii, but he came to the mainland. I was like, what's this race thing that everyone's into? And he tried to assimilate as much as possible. Yeah, so anyway, let's go back to your my Minor Feelings.
A real quick thing about that is like one of my friends in the Bay is also fourth generation, and his father has like his own lab at Stanford, like named after him or something. And I remember feeling at the time like, this doesn't happen on the East Coast. Like no one I know on the East Coast is so multi-generational to have sort of like institutional, like multi-generational clout and like establishment like that.
Yeah. Like all of it is, it's almost like saying some of the ones who do have it are like new money and don't know how to like work through and navigate that. And we're not treated the same, even if you kind of make it, unless you've been around for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just wait. One day, Cal State Fullerton's going to have the Literally Asians Library. One day.
Period.
One day. That is my legacy before I die. Anyway, so then where did you land after Beijing?
I was in New York with my parents up until like middle school, at which point we were in Queens, and then we moved to Long Island, and I was in Long Island for high school. And my high school was definitely, there's like a lot of like racial segregation in Long Island, where like it's not overt as it was in like Jim Crow era by any means, but it's definitely like real estate agents won't show Black and brown families houses in certain districts. It's very kind of intentional in a very like sinister way that doesn't get reported on much. So my high school was about half white, half Asian, and 20 minutes away was a high school that was like almost entirely like Black and brown. And I think that was interesting. Like it was definitely like a very, I think like somewhat sheltered environment. But, and also like not very queer either, like not very queer and definitely not trans. I was on my school's GSA, but it was like baby GSA. It was like the no one was really out. Everyone was kind of like, I'm an ally in GSA, and obviously like,
I'm bi.
yeah. And then like many years later during college, like everyone came out, and we were like, yeah, of course, like the pointing Spider-Man memes, like of course we were all gay, but it was still like, even though at the time I thought it was like pretty open and inclusive, the progress that like the queer and trans communities have made since then really go to show like just how early we were back in like 2016 or something.
But how much has changed so fast, like in just the last like 10 years.
So fast. Like
I love watching these shows like was it Generation like Q, where it's like a high schooler just showing up in all his glory, and it's just so common for all these like queer folks that GSAs, there are fewer GSAs now. They aren't needed. People are just out.
Right. One of my younger brothers is in 11th grade right now. He just started 11th grade, and I've asked him before, like, do people still use like gay as like an insult? Like, is there any sort of like like subtle microaggressive or like any sort of like queerphobic stuff? And he's like, nah, like no one really cares. I'll say like he is straight, so I'm sure he like notices it less, but I do also get the feeling like some younger Gen Zs I know, like bi guys, look identical to straight men, and they feel comfortable presenting that way. And I think it's also the hamster wheel of like queer people do a certain aesthetic, then it becomes trendy for straight men to do it. Then the straight men do, and like that's why all the straight men are wearing like single dangly earrings now and like knitted crop tops, whatever.
And you know what? I saw this funny TikTok about like, when did gay men start wearing baseball caps? Did the gay men trade straight men the baseball caps for the dangly earring? Like, why do straight guys look like gay guys now, and gay guys look like straight guys? I'm like, that's totally true. Like, gay guys are wearing duck
nail polish and
and
everything.
I wear duck printing camo. Like, you know, I still wear that. Like, what? And then it's
Like
just like,
the-
oh, it is true. Yeah.
The Kamala and like Tim Wall's camo baseball cap that they recently put on her merch store, like
Okay,
sold out.
I
It's
want
been
it.
sold out.
I want it so
minutes.
bad.
And like the people that I saw posting about it were all gay guys.
It looks so good.
Right, like
Wait,
game
so-
recognizes game. Like
Okay, so you were in the GSA. You weren't out yet in the GSA, but then you came out in college. Is that what happened?
I was I was a girl in high school and like had definitely did not present like a conventional girl, so I'm sure everyone knew something was up. But I was kind of like very in my head about it at the time and was like, I can't like do any sort of like thing that goes against the grain too early. What I'm gonna do is transition the summer between high school and college, and it'll be a clean break. Everyone at college will know me as a man, and everyone before will not have to do any sort of like awkward social transitioning and will just know me as a girl. And
You really
so
planned this out.
yeah, I did. When I went to the admitted students days at like colleges that I was touring, I like deliberately did not meet anyone. I was like, no one can remember me from the spring, like a new
Fresh
person
start.
in fall. And that's the way it happened. I did look kind of like what trans people call like passing, even before I did did like hormonal transitioning. So as soon as I went on T, basically my voice dropped and it was like a done deal. So it was quite efficient in that way. Like I didn't really have to explain to anyone or like endure the awkwardness of people like misgendering me or whatever.
Got it. And your family, were they with you every step of the way?
Oh hell no.
Okay. You don't have to get into it if you don't want to, but
I mean they were like very Christian, and
yeah.
that
Immigrant and Christian.
immigrant, yeah, right, like pick a struggle.
Sometimes some people argue it's part of the struggle. It's part of what people think will solve the struggle.
It was for them. Honestly, like it's because when we moved to Queens, a local like Protestant church was one of the first communities that they found that really accepted them and like provided for them
Yeah.
and like try to like give them a community, and so they kind of just stuck with it ever since. And obviously then they switched to like a Chinese church, and that was like built-in community for them as well. But they got really into it. Like my dad made the motto of my parents' like law firm. It's like a 4-word motto, and the first letter of each word together spells out Lord. And
Wow.
like they
It was
got
more than
really-
assimilation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. He's really serving. He's earning his place in heaven.
He's served.
I named my law firm after you.
He's serving the Lord.
The Lord.
He's like the
Serving
Lord.
house down boots.
All right, we're gonna move on to some funner topics. I have one last question, and because we asked a lot of our guests this question, the term Gaysian, does that resonate with you? If so, or if not, what term resonates with you, and how you would describe your identity?
I really like the term Gaysian for how like pithy it is. Like I like it as like a portmanteau. Like it's very clever. But I think it feels a little like kitsch.
Yep.
I love the camp of it, though.
Yeah, it's very like earnest. And I think like young people always try to like do this like affectation of like being detached and ironic and like cynical, and so like I think it's maybe a little too earnest for me to use in my like day-to-day vocabulary, but I usually say like queer or Asian. Also because like queer I think is a little more fluid and expansive and encompassing of like people who are not just gay. because even I'm like aspirationally bisexual, um, in that like I've tried to date and like hook up with women, but I think it's like not for me. But God, would I love to be bi?
Same.
I feel like it's similar to like Gaijin was newish for me, but then I took it on because it was a much better version than the previous generation for me, who would say GAM, Gay Asian Male,
Gam.
from like
Oh, I've never
putting
even
on
heard
news.
that.
Well, it's from when people put personal ads in the newspaper and you paid by character, and so you would say GAM, Gay Asian Male, because you don't want to spell out the whole thing.
You were efficient.
Yeah, and so people would use that back in the day, and I found that so cringy. And found Gaijin, so I think it's like the same thing. Your generation found Gaijin cringy, and I have also like felt more connected saying queer and Asian, but Gaijin is faster to say.
Gaijin's faster. And my boyfriend, when we first started dating, he's a little younger, like maybe 5 years younger than me. He's like, that definitely does not resonate with me. I'm more of a queer Asian guy, or yeah, queer Asian guy. And I was like, touche. I mean, fair, you know.
I honestly really like the acronym QTAPI, like Queer and Trans Asian Pacific Islander. It's just kind of like a mouthful to say out loud, but like the acronym, like QTAPI, like I don't know, that there's something, it needs to be workshopped, but there's something
Yes.
there.
Or Q-tap. I don't know. We figured it out.
Yeah, cutesy, something like that.
It's like I think there was that one lesbian group, API Cutesy.
API
Cutesy. It's great. And I love saying it, API Cutesy. That's what we are lacking in, good acronyms.
Yes, who's working on this? What is Kamala Harris's plan to come up with a new catchy queer and Asian acronym?
She's like, who's down with the Q-tap? Okay.
Okay, so I wanted to move a little on and, well, I wanted to say talk about, but make fun of your Substack.
Please, roast me.
Well, okay, so, yeah, go on.
My last birthday party was a birthday roast in which everyone came with loving but devastating remarks. So
We're familiar with the roast, and also for the older generation, like a Substack is what we used to call blogs, but it's for the tech folks, to the young tech bros of San Francisco. They all do Substacks and Mediums now. I think even Mediums are kind of old school.
Mediums are like one-off articles, and Substacks are like newsletters, are like recurring articles.
Yeah. And while you go ahead, don't you? I'm going to keep recording because I need to pee, but you guys keep going, and I'll join you in a bit.
Okay.
Keep going.
So I've read through your blog, Substack, and you actually subscribe to it, so I get the emailed newsletters. And I picked out a few topics that piqued my interest. So you could respond to them if you'd like. And so, because you have a mix of stories about growing
They're
up.
all over the place. There's no cohesive theme.
Yeah, dating, investor updates, and so, for instance, one of the big topics is becoming an influencer. You have your article on that, and you're what marketers call digital natives. And I have troubles getting past the cringe of making content. And you've
We
said
say
that.
as we are making content.
Yeah. And me as a drag queen that has showed up as Jabba the Hutt on stage. So yeah. And you manage content on a Trello board. It's like the most tech bro thing I've seen. Like, what is it like being an influencer?
First, I'm gonna say I manage it on Notion, although
Okay.
no hate to
Yeah,
Trello.
see, Trello's old, yeah.
Trello was actually founded by the lead of my Burning Man camp, so all love to Trello. We love a Kanban. What it's like, I originally started making short form video content to promote my previous startup, and was like, this is a new skill that I'm gonna push past the cringe of and like really get it out there, because social, like, distribution through socials is kind of like the only way to do distribution for consumer products and especially like consumer
Yeah.
social products. So it did start as a very like practical thing. And then I think over time I like just got into it more and was like, this is fun. Like it's fun to just kind of like yap on the internet and have people like give you instant feedback about your thoughts. So
Well, I actually went to the San Francisco Opera because of one of your posts.
oh my God, there
To
you
see
go.
that beautiful AI inspired ballet, and I loved it. It was great. And if you hadn't made that content, I wouldn't have gone.
The ballet I was not paid to do, but the opera I actually was paid. So if you went to the opera, that's like an actual like template case of influencing. Is like we did the
We'll
thing.
send you this. We'll send you this clip, and you can send it to whoever paid you to do that.
Yeah, it was really. I mean, I think a lot of content. The ballet video was really interesting because my friend had like a free ticket to it. And for those who don't know, it's called Mere Mortals. It was put on by the SF Ballet in January for the first time, and it was I think the world premiere. Asher Barton, Hamel Industries, some really like cutting edge, top of their field designers in like lighting design, projection design, scenic, costumes, like everything. They all like kind of came together to put this like fantastic like mind melding like Pandora's box retelling into a ballet, and I went into it like not knowing anything, was just mind blown, like floored by what I saw, and kind of like was surreptitiously like taking some video in the balcony, which was not allowed. But
But
because
they loved it.
Also,
right,
you got
but
them. You got the balcony seats. That's nice.
the balcony seats are actually like usually where the comps are because it's like supposedly not as good of a view. But I think for this
see.
show in particular,
It was
actually
the best
was.
view.
It was a better view because you could see all the formations, and in the orchestra in the house, they're all just like a single line. So I took some video. I was like, I need to make a video about this. And when I posted it, I invited like a bunch of the designers and the artistic director of the ballet as collaborators so that they could like have it appear on their profiles as well. And was really scared when I was posting it because I was like, what if they tell me to take it down because I wasn't supposed to take video and all these things. But I was like, I feel somewhat confident that it's gonna blow up because I think I did the commentary well and I like structured it in a good way, and they're gonna be happy about the press. And that is thankfully what happened.
It worked. It worked. Sold tickets.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to keep going on your Substack. You also talk about dating a lot. You know, you as like over the last few years, I think you started this like 2 or 3 years ago. You've been what, 23 or 4, and you talk a lot about dating. And you know, you've come to San Francisco, and there was one year where you specifically mentioned you went on 40 dates in 1 year and mindfully trying to optimize each date. What was that about? I don't think I've
That's
even
a lot
gone.
of- 40 is like one a week almost.
I haven't gone on 40 dates in my life, I don't think.
I don't believe you.
I don't think I've gone on 40 dates in my life either.
Yeah, wait till you get to know me. Yeah, 1 year. Like what was that about?
I mean, it wasn't intentional. I think like it was a symptom of like an underlying thing, which was that I was like soul searching, and that was the year also that I like was kind of starting to do my startup. So I think I was definitely like looking for some sort of like higher fulfillment and was like passing the time with dates. But it was I am an optimizer actually. Like I do really love to optimize and like parallelize things. Which is probably why I do a lot of ops for my startup now. But the 40 dates were interesting. It definitely gave me some data on like who is attracted to me, because almost all those dates were from like inbound Grinder DMs. And so I was like, oh, this is actually a really interesting like sample of like in the wilds who is like coming for me. And as one can expect in the Bay Area, there's a lot of rice queens.
Yeah.
That's such a bigger thing in SF, by the way, I must say.
Than LA.
Oh.
LA is just a little bit more whatever, whomever, you know? And SF, I feel like it's a little bit. There's more of that like dynamic because there's so many more Asians and white folks are just so more disproportionately that population.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in LA, it's just like you get just I got just some more diversity, you know.
I know, and it's really. I have so many thoughts on Rice Queens, but
Go on.
I trust I will.
Well, go on because this one thing I want to say because I thought Rice Queens was a phenomenon that probably is like me and Don't's generation and maybe has like petered out in like Zillennial Gen Z generation, but it seems like it's very present.
They're alive
in
and
your
well.
life.
Okay, so did you? I mean, you took this data. Did you like make a chart out of it? Like, are they of a certain age range? Well, what did you learn? What did you optimize?
Yeah, I made a dating Wrapped at the end of last year. It's pinned on my Instagram. It's still out on my Instagram as one of the highlights, so you can go see it if you want. It was some really interesting data. A really interesting one was like I charted like how many drinks I had on the date versus like how far the date like escalated kind of. And you guys know that song that's like one margarita, I'm gonna open my legs or whatever.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It was
I know
very,
TikTok. I know the TikTok.
yeah, it was very like as the drinks went up, the likelihood of like hanky panky also went up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an interesting one. It was also like age range was pretty wide. I think like I think it was last year. Yeah, last year I was like definitely kind of in my like going for older guys era. So a lot of the guys were like
what's older?
The oldest one was 58.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Big range, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah,
I'm
and the
39 and Doncha is 45. Is that older for you? Like, oh, that's I'm dating. Would you be like to your friends? I'm going on a date with an older guy. Yeah,
no, I think
probably.
it's like kind of smack dab in the middle from like last year's range at
Okay.
least.
Okay.
This year I've gone on like probably fewer than 10 dates. So, and it's like the year's almost over. But thoughts on Rice Queens. So,
Yes, please.
Yeah, go on.
off.
okay, I think first of all, being on the East Coast and experiencing like Asian appreciators is very different from on the West Coast. Like, kind of because of what you guys were saying, like how in the Bay Area it's mostly white and Asian, at least in SF, it's mostly white and Asian people. So, one is not so much of like a directed, like deliberate thing on the part of the white guys like seeking out Asian people. It's a little more so that they're just working with the population that they have. And I think some other stuff that I've also like noticed from becoming friends with, like having gone on dates with like white people who are predominantly into Asian people are also like there are specific kind of like traits that they're into that like doesn't actually limit the population to Asian people. Like it usually includes like Latino people too, because like
I remember that. Yeah.
right, because it's
That's
like
very
about
common.
hairless and kind of like not having like facial hair and like being kind of like youthful looking. And an interesting thing that I have like a side corollary on is like I think some of these Rice Queens are actually closeted trans women. Because like usually when they're into the like hairlessness and the like what conventional society portrays as like femininity, they're into it for themselves as well. Like it's not usually like a scruffy bearded guy who's into Asians. It's usually like clean shaven guys who want to be hairless themselves.
They're searching for it in themselves while searching
as
for
well
others.
as their
Wow.
partners.
Wow, what a great insight.
What a take! Wait, it's a take, but also,
Yeah.
have you seen evidence of this in?
Not much evidence, but but also like
Interesting, yeah.
I think there's-
Causation is not correlation.
yeah, for sure. But I think it's also a lot of like the people that I like hook up with or go on dates with are like tend to be kind of like ran through, and I think like when you
Wait, what does it ran through mean? Like everyone's dated them,
like they're like
or
a,
like they?
they're like town property. They're like
Oh,
They,
they've
like-
been ran through.
yeah, their body count is pretty substantial.
Okay,
Everyone
okay,
knows
yeah.
them.
Yes, and we've all our three of us probably have dated the same ones.
Yeah. Right. So I think there's a lot of like when you can experience such easy like sexual and romantic gratification with men as your like current gender or presentation, like there's probably very high friction to like changing that, even if you are a closeted trans person. So that's one thought. Another thought is like just being closer friends and like and also like dates turned friends with some quote unquote like rice queens. I actually like I think one on the West Coast it's like way less kind of like cut and dry malicious. Like on the East Coast, I think it tends to be more like a little more like tropey, a little more like black and white. But on the West Coast, because it's a little more like taking into like the Asian person's like full humanity. I've also found that like it has been very gratifying and kind of like affirming to have friends who are like predominantly into Asian people who are not Asian comment on like Asian attractiveness and say like hear them comment on like Asian people of a wide range of like conventional attractiveness on how attractive they are. Like it has helped me even like kind of open my eyes more to like wider types of Asian beauty. And that has been really nice.
Less exotification, but more appreciation.
Right, right. Yeah, and that's been really cool that like at times where like I see myself being like ugly that day or like having a bad hair day, whatever, they'll be like, no, you look good. Like it's just like a different lens that I think has been very like healthy to be around.
Yeah, love yourself like a rice queen loves you. You know?
You, I used to call myself a rice queen in high school because I felt like I exotified other Asian. I loved the smooth skin. I sounded like, a '90s rice queen back then, and I would make fun of it. But it's I've expanded upon like beyond that. But
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's 100% of the time, but a part of that, of you thinking that it's creepy for them to exotify your features, is how you think of your features.
also like I'm hot because of the part of the
Yeah, or like
reasons.
maybe they're exotifying because I don't think that's hot. I don't think I'm hot. You know?
Right,
And you're
right.
like, that's a weird. That's creepy for them to like this. And for me at least, or like a part of the times when I think that it is informed by that sometimes, and you gotta check yourself. You gotta realize like I am hot, but like sometimes I do realize like in the past, like maybe 15 years ago, it does come from that a little bit.
For sure, for sure. It comes from like looking in the mirror and not understanding why someone else would find it attractive.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that would like help me in my journey to accept rice queens was my friend who is not a rice queen. He's kind of into like POC of all stripes, but he was saying that his ex, who was Asian, wanted him to be wanted him to like not be into any Asian people but him. Like his ex was the only Asian person that my friend was into. And I think that's a common kind of like gut instinct or like reaction that a lot of people who have been fetishized develop is like, I want to be special. I want to sort of like not be like
be
the
into
other.
me because I'm me. Yeah.
Yeah. And his thing was like, it kind of assumes that like there is something about Asianness by default that is unattractive, that like you are so hot that you like are exempt from that or something. Like he was kind of like, if I'm into you, like why would I not find the same qualities of your Asianness also attractive in other people? Like and that was really enlightening to me because I was like, that's true. Like if like why do I want to be the only one? Like if they see me as like quote unquote normal or like part of the status quo, then wouldn't they also see Asian people as attractive?
So, what was some of the dating data that you collected on, say, like non-rice queens or some other, groups of people
Attributes.
that you would attribute? Yes.
I kind of realized about myself that like I like in as I don't really think I have like a racial preference, but like to the extent that I do, I think I'm like a little more into like black guys than like other races. a part of it I think is like kind of the sort of like I think like Black American culture has a very interesting lens on like stylized masculinity, and has like a very interesting like point of view on how that masculinity looks. And I find like a similar thing in how like masked lesbians present their masculinity, in that it's like the aesthetic of it is very interesting to me. And I'm very into kind of like the intentional masculinization. So,
Have you seen the TikTok trend? Like, what's your stud
What's your
name?
stud name?
What's your stud name?
So good.
It's
literally,
that's so
I took
good.
so
It's
many
so wholesome.
screenshots in that video. I was like, I'm stealing all these outfits.
I know, great outfits.
Outfits, hair, the names. The names are great.
I'm like, I'm gonna have to come
Yeah.
up with a stud name.
Okay, so we're running a little bit out of time, so I want to wrap this up with our famous segment called the Be Real segment. And this is the segment that we talk about what's ever on our hearts and minds. Anything goes, something funny, something sad, something angry, your choice. And so since you're our guest, Emmett, I'm going to have Chris go first so you can get some
Great.
time to think about what you might want to talk about. So Chris, what's going on with you? What's your Be Real?
I guess it's kind of, I guess it's a little bit like what we've been talking about is dating. Like, you have been on 40 dates in a year, and I am 40, and I haven't even gone on that many. And I attended a gay wedding this weekend. It was beautiful, great friends. You know them, Bao. And
Yeah.
otherwise known as a wedding. Just to be clear about that. The newlyweds are around my age, and one of them is actually older than me. And so, although I'm not necessarily looking to get married, I saw this beautiful wedding, and I kind of gave me this sort of sense of, oh yeah, I either longed for it or a little bit excitement, because I was maybe a little hopeful about that. I could be that too. Because they just met a few years ago. I was like, oh, could I meet someone and like not get married, but like have that kind of connection at the moment? And because dating at this age, it's harder. It's like, you think it's maybe hard at 25, it's hard at nearly 45. And, and then afterwards, their mothers had like speeches. And, one of them is Vietnamese and one of them is Filipino. And, they had, also, I think, immigrant parents. They both had their accents. And all I could think about was like, oh, wow. Like, it's so sweet that they are talking about these innocent childhood stories, kind of making fun of their kids, but also really espousing their, how proud they are about their accomplishments, about their sons. And I was like, Asian mothers talking about like the accomplishments of their like child.
Unheard of.
Yeah, and the cynic in me was like, oh, of course they're doing this. It's a wedding. What are they going to say? But then at the same time, I just kept thinking and saying to everyone around me, like, I can't imagine my mom doing this, even if it were my wedding. She can't say one nice thing about me unless it's like a dig. And I thought it was really sweet. I might have even shed a tear about it. It was cute. I mean, I recorded it. I was sending it to Bao. I was like, who does this? And I thought it was really sweet. And that's it. I don't know. I had feelings about it. I don't know I don't have any like resolutions around it. I was like, just that maybe I could date, and my mom is crazy.
I think my mom could never. My mom's also Vietnamese, but she could never, So I'm very happy for them that their moms did that, but that in doing that sort of stood in to be the sort of parent that people like you and I needed in the moment.
Yeah. And I don't want to be jealous. I got the mom that I got. But it's hard for me not to feel jealous about watching white families on TV grow up say, I love you. It's just different. It's different. And so I just gotta, I don't know, live with it, I guess.
But it looked like you have fun, and you look so hot. That was such an outfit.
I got my big new Japanese pants.
I knew those
are
from Tokyo.
Yeah, like big wide leg to and like a big, beautiful like shirt dress. I loved it.
I need to look at these pictures now.
Yeah, we gotta say that outfit was on point.
Oh yeah.
All right, Emmett, time for you to be real. What's
Yeah,
on
any
your mind?
thoughts?
What's on your heart?
Honestly, kind of. I mean, besides work, which is always on my mind, but like doesn't need to be talked about anymore. I think I've been kind of thinking about a similar thing about dating. So I recently rejoined Hinge after like a year off Hinge or something.
Not the league.
I've been on the league. I feel like it's worse. It's worse.
Oh, okay.
It's like full of people who like think they're too good for everyone else and also are usually white. So
Okay.
yeah, back on Hinge, I think like there's this tweet that me and my friend always like laugh at, and it's like, does Hinge know that I'm actually attracted to hot people? Like
Oh God.
I know.
and like I think that was a lot of my experience with Hinge before I quit, where I was like, am I
That was
just
really
like,
funny.
am I like too big for my britches? Like do I need to look in a mirror and like get real with myself? Like, and I also this time around, maybe it's because I'm like just newly back on, the population has been quite good. I think like the thing that I'm working on is kind of being like less serious and being like more playful by default. Like I went to Burning Man for the first time this year and had a lot of personal revelations and like conclusions that I wanted to change my life. And one was just like I've been like unnecessarily serious for the past few years and just want to like reconnect with kind of like my former, a little like silly, a little dramatic self, and like letting that lead on like dating interactions. I think before I was like I hate small talk and I want to like get to the deep stuff right away, but like I think I've since realized like one, not everyone is ready for that right away, and two, like you got to give people a reason to want to get to the deep stuff with you, and that reason usually is like being fun and like quippy and like a little flirty on the top. So I have been trying to rizz up some people on it,
Riz up.
Damn.
and it's been fun. Like I don't know how well it's going, but it's been fun.
Where do you think all that recent seriousness all came from?
I think like some of it came from like not feeling like I had found my people in SF for a long time. Like when I first moved to SF, I was with my ex who had lived here for like 6 years already, so a lot of our friends were through them, and they were not really like my type of people. And so for like a long time in SF, I feel like I wasn't just like around people that helped me be my most authentic self, like dispositionally. And I'm trying to care less about like the people that I'm around and still be myself despite that. And like romantic things have been easier to do in that regard because like I'm never gonna see these people again.
Yeah. Me and my boyfriend actually met on Hinge, but we didn't go on a date on Hinge. It didn't work out. He had COVID. Then I am the kind of person like if you fall off for a week, then I will not talk to you again, which is probably bad. And actually, we found each other. He found me again on TikTok because of the podcast.
Oh,
What's that going to happen for me? I just get catfished.
And then he was like trying to riz me up, I guess, on TikTok. And I'm like, I never checked TikTok, so we texted and we went on a date, and then the rest is history.
Oh
So.
God, when will that be us, Chris?
It'll happen. It'll happen. We gotta try harder, but not try too hard. That's the thing.
When you try too hard, you scare the men away.
You know, I had already deleted Hinge at that point in my life when he messaged me on TikTok and decided like I'm happy single, and that's gonna be fine. And I think once I decided that, of course, this happens.
It flipped.
And I was like, wait, I was already prepared. This is weird, and I was trying every reason not for it to not be real. And every little thing, I was like, nope. See, this is why I'm trying to be single, and then it just happened, and I just let it happen, and I feel fortunate. I don't like to talk about the relationship because sometimes I felt like it took a long time to get there. But maybe that's on to my Be Real, which is now that maybe my boyfriend are probably pretty serious now. Not pretty serious, but pretty serious. We've dated for like 8 months now, and one thing we do connect on is that we both are anxious people and have a history of depression. And he's going through a little bit of an episode right now, and I feel like it's hard. I'm trying to be there for him and positive, because like sometimes I'm on TikTok and I see these, I think lesbians are the model couple. And when I see lesbians on TikTok, they always seem so like great. And one TikTok I saw was like one girl being like, my girlfriend pretended that we were at a fancy restaurant taking my order while I was going through a depressive episode. I was like, why can't I want to be that kind of like boyfriend. But then it's hard because it's hard to not take things personally, or like feel like maybe I might have been the trigger to this episode. Or like it's hard knowing that he feels very vulnerable, me seeing him this way. And it's also hard because I relate to him, because I've had depressive episodes like during the pandemic, and I know that sometimes your brain just hits something, and you're like, I could be experiencing the biggest pleasure in life right now, and my brain won't turn that pleasure on. And so it's something that we're working through. I've been through another episode with him, and that didn't go well, and I'm trying to be better at this time. And it's just funny because I was just talking to Doncha about this. It's like, why is it so easy for me to talk about these things on a podcast? and a lot of my friends are like, I didn't know you were going through that. I'm like, I don't know why it's so easy on a podcast. Maybe because like I know that the intent of that moment is for me to talk about, like, be real. The intent of the moment is for us to get real. But like when I'm trying to watch like the
drag race with your friends,
drag race with my friends, I'm not gonna bring this up. Or like sometimes I talk through it here, and then I'm like, oh, I'm ready to have that conversation with my boyfriend now. So maybe this is part of that routine, but I don't know. It's just realizing now there's the intimacy that can be like this happy, lovey-dovey thing that you think about, but this true vulnerability, this true like intimacy is also just like really real and sometimes hard. And I think that's what I'm realizing now, and I hope I am making the right choices in it, and I'm like supporting him, not making it harder. I don't know. That's where I am right now.
Maybe you vocalizing it here will like have something click for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's coming over after we record this, and even then I felt bad for like, oh, we can't hang out tonight because I'm recording this episode. But yeah, and part of me is also a very type A control freak, where I'm like now just planning workouts so that he can just get out of the house with me, but we're trying not to overdo it. That he makes, it's just the calculations that go in my head to try to make this work. Is maybe it's just like taking it day by day, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like so much of like dating someone, or even like being friends with someone who like has hard times sometimes, is like not even about like finding what the objective like right solution is or whatever, but about like just how you can support them and how you can like exert your own energy to the best of your efforts and without like straining yourself. And like every dynamic and relationship is unique in figuring out where all those like millions of lines lie. So
it just might be time. That's all that's needed.
Yeah, and I know it is that, but it's that, Emmett, and I totally relate to that. Just like it's hard finding out the lines, and like offering something like, I'll drive and bring you a meal. Wait, that doesn't work for you. It's just like, but I wish you could have appreciated that I tried. It's just like, and it's just
it's about like figuring out how someone wants to be loved instead of like how you want to love them.
Yeah, very much what he would say too, and also just like trying to find out how to take care of them when they don't know how to articulate how it's best to take care of them. And yeah, I've been going through that this week, and I'm a lot lighter about it. But like maybe earlier in the week, I was having a hard time with it.
When it was new and fresh.
When it's new and fresh, and it's just like I can't help but blame myself. Like it's probably me, and he doesn't want. You go to your own. You go through your own projection of it. Like it's me. He's too nice to tell me it's me, and it actually wasn't. And also,
it's not about you, Bal.
Oh, it's not. No, or like not about me, but it's like I don't want to be the cause of it.
Yeah.
And less about like I want to be the cure of it. But of course, I love him so much. I just want it to go away. I want him to feel better, but I'm gonna give it time.
Absolutely.
Oh. Well, I mean, I'm happy you shared that. I mean, like, you were saying like, why can't we talk to other people about this? But this is our forum. This is our format. People always tell me like, I didn't know this about you and Bao. I feel like I'm getting to know you better through the podcast than when I see you in person. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
Content is so fucking efficient for like just mass disseminating your life updates to all your friends.
Right? You understand that. So people now, but the thing is, when I hang out with people now, they like don't know whether to ask me how I'm doing or not because they've already, like I've already told the world. So with that, well, thank you so much, Emmett, for being on this podcast.
Thank you guys so much for inviting me. This was a pleasure.
Yeah, I hope to see you around. Hopefully, we'll be on dates with the one.
Go on a double date.
A double date, yeah.
Please.
That'll be great. And then we'll do a podcast about it.
Yeah. And FaceTime Bao on the background.
And then, Emmett, where can people find you on the socials?
They can find me on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter at double EMT. That's the word double and then EMT.
And where can they find your Substack?
What if I don't want them to find my Substack? Just kidding. It's linked in my Instagram.
All right. Read the Substack. It's fun. I enjoy it. And you can find Literally Gasians wherever you listen to podcasts. And watch our YouTubes too for all the Gen Z. If you like the video format, we're on the YouTube.
Subscribe.
Okay.
We need more subscribers to start monetizing.
You guys will be the
Yeah.
only channel that I subscribe to on my YouTube.
And if you want to support our amateur ass podcast, you can support our Patreon, Literally Gasians on Patreon. And we're about to end the season with a couple more episodes before the end of the year, which means at the end of the year, we're going to do the listener mailbag. And that's the funnest episode. It was the funnest episode for us to do last season. So if you have any conundrums, questions, anything you need advice on, send a DM and then we will try to include it.
And we'll get some bad answers for you.
Bad, exceptionally unqualified advice. That's what we're going to give you.
Wait,
and
when
that's
is
the
the
fun of
episode
it.
dropping? Like holiday season?
Maybe. Yeah. Holiday season.
It's coming. We'll go where the wind takes us. But you're saying the extremely amateur hour. Yesterday, our friend Joshua went on to Chat GPT and said, "What is the hottest Gasian podcast out there?" We were number one. It listed us by name, and it had a little description of what we talk about. I was like, "Dang, AI."
Whoa.
So funny.
What's it called? MLM?
MLM.
LLM. We're in the LLM.
Not MLM. MLM.
M for
Men
M.
who love men.
MSM, whatever it is. We're in that. Our podcast in that. So anyways, thank you, Emmett. And we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, everyone.